The gentle light from the small candles cast flickering shadows throughout the chapel. I'm Father Daniel, sitting in my cramped, dim confessional, my hands resting loosely on my lap, a blue stole draped over my shoulders. The air is thick with incense, the subtle scent of myrrh and wax doing little to lighten the heaviness in my chest. It had been a peaceful night, until now. "Forgive me, Father, for I have transgressed," a voice says from the other side of the screen. It's deep, rough, and tinged with something I can't quite place. Amusement? Malice? I can't tell, but the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I clear my throat softly, striving to keep my voice steady. "The Lord listens to all confessions. Please speak, my child." There's a brief silence, and then the voice resumes, slower now, savoring each word. "I have taken someone's life, Father." Those words fall like stones into still water, sending ripples of unease through my chest. My hands tighten on my lap as my pulse quickens. A murder confession isn't unheard of, but there's something in the way this man speaks, like it's a delight rather than a burden, that makes my stomach churn. "Please tell me," I say softly, my voice calm though my body feels tense. "What happened?" The man on the other side chuckles, a soft, throaty laugh that sends a shiver through the booth. "Oh, it's amusing, really," he says. "I didn't even intend to at first. One moment, he was pleading for his life, and the next, pop!" He makes a sound with his lips, like a cork being popped from a bottle. "You'd be surprised how much blood a man can spill when you strike the right spot." My grip on the wooden armrest grows tighter until my knuckles turn white. "Do you feel remorse?" I ask, though I already know the answer. "Remorse?" he snorts. "No. Why should I? He was in my debt. He disrespected me. And now he's, what do you priests usually say, in a better place?" I feel heat rising to my face, my pulse pounding like a drum. The seal of confession binds me, tying my hands as tightly as any rope could. No matter what this man reveals, no matter how vile, how evil, I can't repeat it. I can't report it. But I can feel it, and right now, every fiber of my being urges me to get up, to throw open the screen, and to do something. Instead, I take a slow, shaky breath. "God's mercy is boundless," I say, though my voice wavers. "Even for sinners like you. But forgiveness requires true repentance." The man shifts on the other side of the screen. "Repentance?" he muses. "Maybe someday. But tonight? No. Tonight, I think I'll just relish the memory." His laughter is soft, but it crawls under my skin like insects. Without another word, he stands, and I hear the faint creak of the confessional door opening, followed by the echo of boots clicking against the stone floor. I remain seated, frozen in place, my heart pounding as if I had just survived an attack. I push open the heavy wooden doors of St. Joseph's Catholic Church. The night air hits me like a wave, cool and sharp, but it does nothing to quell the nausea bubbling in my stomach. I step onto the stone steps of the church, running a shaking hand over my face, my collar damp with sweat. "God forgive me," I whisper under my breath. Suddenly, I double over, my hands on my knees, as something cold and wrong seems to settle over me. The air changes, thickens, as though the very atmosphere around me has turned to oil. A foul, invisible pressure presses down on my shoulders, my chest, my very soul. It feels malevolent, ancient, hungry. I gag, the taste of bile rising in my throat as I vomit onto the steps, the sound ragged and wet. The moment the sickness leaves me, the laughter begins. At first, it's faint, like an echo on the wind. Then it grows louder. Closer. The same laughter I heard in the confessional, but now it's endless, maddening, and inhuman. It fills my ears, reverberates inside my skull, until it's all I can hear. I clamp my hands over my ears, falling to my knees as the sound becomes unbearable. "Stop!" I gasp, tears streaming down my face. "Stop!" But it won't stop. The world around me darkens, the streetlights dimming as though the night itself has thickened, swallowing what little light remains. Through the blackness, I see it, a vision so vivid it leaves me breathless. Flames. They erupt across a vast, sprawling landscape, consuming everything in their path. The ground cracks open like the maw of a beast, spewing molten fire into a sky blackened with smoke. The outlines of buildings, churches, castles, homes, buckled and crumbled, reduced to ash as the inferno rages on. And then I see them. Eyes. Dozens of them, glowing like coals in the shadows. They blink and shift, their massive shapes hidden just beyond the edge of the firelight. But there's one pair, one set of eyes, that freezes me where I kneel. Orange. Burning. Evil. The laughter grows louder, the vision shuddering like a flame caught in the wind. The eyes blink once, twice, and then something in the darkness moves. It surges forward, a wall of shadows and teeth, and I gasp as the vision vanishes. The night returns in an instant, the air still heavy but no longer suffocating. The laughter is gone, leaving only silence behind. I stay on my knees for a long moment, shaking and breathless, the bile still sharp in my mouth. My eyes flick up to the darkened street, my pulse hammering in my ears. I stagger to my feet, my legs weak beneath me, and I can't shake the feeling that something has seen me. Something out there, in the dark, watching and waiting. And it is still laughing. I'm James, sitting at my desk in the King's Staff Lounge, the fluorescent lights overhead buzzing faintly like the inside of a dying beehive. My pen scratches against the clipboard as I try to organize my notes from the last session. Emily's words still cling to me like cobwebs. A broken crown, shattered into pieces, and no one knows how to put it back together. I exhale sharply and rub my eyes, the caffeine in my system doing little to keep the fatigue at bay. The clock on the wall ticks methodically, each second chipping away at my sanity. Outside, the storm still rages. A distant rumble of thunder rattles the windows, the rain cascading against the glass like relentless whispers. Suddenly I freeze. The pen drops from my hand. My breath hitches as an icy current seems to rush through the room, as though the temperature has plummeted. My chest tightens, and my pulse thuds erratically in my ears. I glance around the empty room, my heart hammering for no reason I can name. Then I hear it. Faint laughter. Not just faint, far away. Distant, distorted, rising from somewhere that feels impossibly close yet miles beyond. It slithers through my ears like something alive, curling around my thoughts, squeezing until it becomes all I can hear. I stagger to my feet, knocking my chair over with a sharp clatter. I clutch my head as the room around me warps. The walls seem to pulse, growing narrow, and then expanding like lungs inhaling deeply. The shadows in the corners bleed outward, coalescing like dark ink spreading across paper. "What the hell?" I whisper hoarsely, but the words choke in my throat. My vision blurs, the fluorescent lights overhead dimming into darkness. And then I see fire. It erupts before my eyes, an inferno raging across a kingdom I recognize yet don't. The castle, Emily's castle, cracks and crumbles, its towers falling like children's blocks. Toad Town lies in ruins, the mushroom-capped houses engulfed in orange flames that lick the blackened sky. The air is thick with smoke and screams, their cries mingling with the shriek of something unnatural, something alive in the destruction. In the center of it all, standing amidst the burning wreckage, is her. Princess Emily. She wears her pristine gown, though it is torn and stained with blood. Her golden hair whips around her like a mane of fire, her crown lopsided on her head. Her eyes glow, a piercing, unnatural blue, and her smile is wide and wrong. In her arms, she clutches a baby. The baby is wrong, so very wrong. Its face is aged by millennia and leering, and its awful, burning, orange eyes almost swallow my very soul, its painted teeth smeared with something dark and wet. "Doctor," she whispers, her voice slicing through the roar of the flames. "You're just in time." The ground beneath my feet cracks open, fire and ash billowing into the sky. I fall to my knees, my hands reaching out instinctively as the molten earth trembles beneath me. And then I see them, those eyes. Just beyond the fire, hiding in the darkness. Massive, glowing eyes, orange like dying embers, watching me. They blink once, twice, and then move, the darkness surging forward like a wave. I scream. I jolt awake with a gasp, my chest heaving, my shirt damp with sweat. The room is back to normal, fluorescent lights buzzing, rain tapping against the window, but my vision swims as though I had been underwater. I grip the edge of the desk, my knuckles white, as I try to steady my breathing. "What the hell was that?" I whisper, my voice shaking. The distant echo of laughter still lingers in my ears, faint but impossible to ignore. I wipe a trembling hand across my face and glance at the clock. 3:27 in the morning. I swallow hard, trying to push the image of the burning kingdom from my mind. I don't believe in visions, in omens, in supernatural nonsense. But what I saw, what I felt, was real. Too real. I turn my head toward the window, staring at the storm outside. Lightning flashes, illuminating the distant silhouette of King's east wing. And for just a moment, I think I see her standing there. Emily. She's watching me. Another flash of lightning and she's gone. The next morning, I woke up feeling restless. The events of the night before replayed in my mind like a broken record. I rubbed my temples, trying to shake off the lingering unease. As Father Daniel, my days are usually filled with routine, mass schedules, confessions, and the occasional community event. But lately, something feels off, like a shadow lurking just beyond the edges of my reality. I decided to visit Father Daniel at the chapel. Maybe sharing my experience would help clear my head. The chapel was quiet when I arrived, the morning sun casting long beams through the stained glass windows. Father Daniel was already there, arranging some pamphlets on a nearby table. "Good morning, James." He greeted me with a warm smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Morning, Daniel," I replied, taking a seat across from him. "Can I talk to you about something that happened last night?" He nodded, his expression turning serious. "Of course. What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, recounting the vivid nightmare I had. "I had this terrifying vision of a burning kingdom and saw Princess Emily holding a baby with those awful eyes. It felt so real, like I was actually there." Father Daniel listened intently, his face betraying no emotion. When I finished, he leaned back, his hands clasped together. "Dreams can be powerful, James. Sometimes they reflect our subconscious fears and stresses." I wasn't so sure. It felt different, though. Like a warning or something more. He sighed softly, glancing towards the confessional booth. "You know, last night, I had a similar experience. After hearing the disturbing confession, I felt an overwhelming presence. It was like something dark was watching me." My heart raced. "Do you think these visions are connected?" He looked at me thoughtfully. It's possible. There have been strange occurrences in this town recently, unexplained events that have left both clergy and residents on edge. Before I could ask more, the chapel doors swung open with a creak. Father Daniel stood, his demeanor shifting back to his usual calm self. I need to attend to something. If you need to talk more, you know where to find me. As he walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were both being drawn into something much larger and more sinister than we could comprehend. Later that afternoon, I received a call from the church office. James, could you come down? We have a situation. The secretary's voice was tense. I hurried to the office, finding Father Daniel and a few other staff members gathered around a table strewn with papers and lit candles. The atmosphere was thick with tension. What's going on? I asked, trying to peer over the documents. Father Daniel looked up, his eyes weary. We've been receiving more confessions lately, confessions that are unsettling and unsettlingly similar. It's as if someone or something is orchestrating these admissions. One of the staff members, Karen, spoke up. And it's not just the confessions. People around town are reporting strange sightings and unexplained phenomena. Last night, a few reported seeing shadows moving against the wind, and others heard whispers in empty rooms. I felt a chill run down my spine. Do you think it's connected to those visions we had? Father Daniel nodded slowly. I believe so. We might be dealing with a presence that's feeding off fear and unrest. It's spreading, and we need to find a way to stop it before it consumes more of our community. The weight of his words settled heavily on my shoulders. What can we do? He looked around the room, meeting each person's gaze. We need to strengthen our faith, support each other, and remain vigilant. This entity thrives on division and doubt. Unity and belief might be our only defense. As I left the office, the gravity of our situation pressed down on me. The chapel, once a place of solace, had become the epicenter of a growing darkness. I knew we had to act quickly, but uncertainty loomed large. How could we confront something we barely understood? That night, as I lay in bed, the storm from yesterday seemed to have passed, but an uneasy calm settled over the town. I tried to focus on peaceful thoughts, but the image of Princess Emily and those burning eyes lingered in my mind. Sleep was elusive, and I felt the first signs of exhaustion setting in, knowing that whatever was coming, it was only the beginning. Days turned into weeks, and the strange occurrences in our town showed no signs of abating. The once tight-knit community was now gripped by fear and suspicion. Father Daniel and I worked tirelessly, coordinating with other church members and local authorities to address the growing crisis. One evening, as I was closing up the church, I noticed Father Daniel standing alone by the altar, his expression troubled. Daniel, everything all right? I asked, approaching him cautiously. He turned to me, eyes shadowed with worry. James, I've been doing some research. There are old legends about our town, stories of a curse that resurfaces every few decades, bringing darkness and despair. I frowned. A curse? Are you saying what we're experiencing is supernatural in nature? He nodded. It aligns with the timing. The last time this happened, records indicate it lasted for about 30 years before fading away. But this time, it feels different, more intense. I took a seat beside him, feeling the weight of his revelation. Is there anything we can do to break it? Father Daniel sighed, pulling out an ancient-looking book from his bag. There are rituals mentioned in these texts, prayers and ceremonies meant to cleanse the town and protect its people. But they require collective effort and unwavering faith. Just then, the church bells rang, signaling midnight. A shiver ran down my spine. We should get back inside. It's getting late. As we walked towards the entrance, a loud crash echoed from outside. I peered out the window, but all I saw was darkness and the remnants of the storm. What was that? Before Father Daniel could respond, the ground beneath us trembled. The church walls seemed to pulse, and a low growl resonated through the building. Shadows danced menacingly along the walls, stretching and twisting unnaturally. We need to start the ritual now, Father Daniel declared, his voice steady despite the chaos around us. Gather everyone. It's time to stand together. We hurriedly moved through the church, informing the staff and congregants of the impending ceremony. Panic was palpable, but Father Daniel's presence provided a semblance of calm. One by one, people gathered in the main hall, forming a circle of united faith. Father Daniel began the ceremony, his voice resonating with authority as he recited the ancient prayers. Candles were lit, and the air grew thick with incense, the scent attempting to mask the underlying fear. I joined in, my heart pounding but my resolve strengthening. As the prayers continued, the temperature in the church dropped sharply. A cold wind swept through the building, extinguishing some of the candles. The shadows seemed to converge towards the center of the room, forming a dark vortex that pulsed with malevolent energy. Do not falter, Father Daniel urged. Our faith is stronger than any darkness. The vortex emitted a deafening roar, and I felt a presence pressing against my very soul. Memories of the burning kingdom and the haunting eyes surged back, but this time I stood my ground. We will not be afraid, I shouted over the chaos. We stand together. The combined strength of our prayers created a barrier of light, pushing back the darkness. The vortex writhed and shrieked, struggling against the unified faith. Slowly, the shadows began to dissipate, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as hope prevailed. With a final, resounding cry, the darkness was banished, leaving the church in a serene stillness. Exhausted but victorious, we collapsed into each other's arms, the weight of the ordeal finally lifting. Father Daniel looked around the room, a mixture of relief and determination in his eyes. This is just the beginning. We must remain vigilant and continue to support one another. I nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. We'll get through this together. As the first light of dawn broke through the windows, casting a warm glow over the chapel, I couldn't help but feel that our unity had forged a path through the darkness. But deep down, I knew that the battle was far from over. The shadows might have retreated for now, but the threat still loomed, waiting for the right moment to return. Weeks passed since the ritual, and the town began to return to a semblance of normalcy. The eerie occurrences lessened, and a fragile peace settled over the community. Father Daniel and I continued our duties, though the memory of those dark days lingered in our minds. One afternoon, while organizing some old records in the church basement, I stumbled upon a dusty journal hidden behind a stack of books. Curious, I opened it to find entries dating back centuries, detailing the history of our town and the recurring curse. As I read, a chill ran down my spine. The entries spoke of a malevolent spirit, bound to the land by a tragic event long forgotten. Every few decades, the spirit's power would wax and wane, unleashing darkness upon the unsuspecting townsfolk. The only way to quell its wrath was through collective faith and remembrance of its origin. I showed the journal to Father Daniel, who examined it with growing concern. This explains the patterns we've been experiencing. The curse is cyclical, and we're currently in its resurgence phase. He looked up, determination etched on his face. We need to delve deeper into these records. Understanding the root cause might help us find a more permanent solution. Together, We spent countless hours poring over the journal and other historical documents, piecing together the fragmented story of the curse. It turned out that centuries ago, a grievous injustice had been committed. An innocent soul had been wronged, binding their spirit to the land in eternal torment. The key to breaking the curse, as the journal suggested, was not just faith, but also acknowledgement and rectification of the past wrongs. We needed to uncover the truth behind the original injustice and seek to make amends. Our investigation led us to the town's oldest buildings and long-abandoned sites, searching for any clues that might shed light on the tragic event. One evening, as we explored the remnants of an old manor on the outskirts of town, we discovered a hidden chamber beneath the foundation. Inside, faded portraits and decaying artifacts hinted at a forgotten family and their dark secrets. Among the debris, we found a letter addressed to the town founder, detailing the betrayal and the subsequent curse. It spoke of forgiveness and the need to honor the memory of the wronged soul to finally release their spirit from bondage. Armed with this knowledge, we returned to the church, preparing for another ceremony, one that would not only pray for protection but also honor the past and seek forgiveness. We invited the entire community, emphasizing the importance of unity and collective healing. On the night of the ceremony, the church was filled with a sense of purpose. People gathered, holding candles and joining hands, their faces reflecting hope and determination. Father Daniel and I led the prayers, incorporating the newfound understanding into our words. We gather here not only to seek protection from the darkness, but also to acknowledge the pain of the past. Father Daniel intoned, "Let us offer our forgiveness and remember those who suffered, so their spirits may find peace." As we chanted together, a palpable energy filled the room. The air grew warm, and a soothing light enveloped us, contrasting sharply with the previous darkness. The oppressive presence that had plagued our town began to lift, replaced by a sense of tranquility and renewal. Tears welled up in my eyes as I felt the collective faith and forgiveness breaking the chains of the curse. The visions that once haunted us faded, replaced by a profound sense of relief and gratitude. When the ceremony concluded, the congregation stood in silent reverence, the weight of years of fear finally lifted. Father Daniel placed a hand on my shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of our shared journey. "We did it," I whispered, feeling the truth of those words deep within me. As the community dispersed, sharing stories and embracing one another, I looked around the church with a renewed sense of hope. The darkness had been vanquished, not through fear or isolation, but through unity, understanding, and the unwavering strength of our collective faith. But as I walked home that night, under a sky clear and starlit, a lingering thought stayed with me. While the curse was broken, the memories and lessons it left behind would forever shape our community. We had faced the darkness together and emerged stronger, but the vigilance to maintain our unity and faith would be essential to ensure that such shadows never returned. With a deep breath, I embraced the night, feeling at peace for the first time in what seemed like an eternity. The town of Kingsthorn had weathered the storm, and as its protector, I vowed to remain steadfast, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring.